On this episode of Power Couples,
if you were to ask Brian and I weren't around who's the boss, he would say him. And if you were to ask me when Brian's not around, I would say me, because I totally believe I am. And he totally believes he is. And it works.
Jennifer and Brian Bourn discuss living a simple life while raising 2 young kids and running a website design business together. Meet Jennifer and Brian. Since first meeting in college and falling in love, they've now been married for 14 years and have 2 kids, Natalie and Carter. They also own and operate their own website and graphic design firm, Bourn Creative, in Sacramento, California.
We met in college at a 7 a.m. English class, and Brian was actually not very nice to me and didn't talk to me very much.
It's not entirely true.
And we never, then class ended and that was it. Nothing had ever happened except he had made fun of me for having to take summer school because I needed to take summer school. And I was really irritated. And then I showed up on that first day of summer school and who walked in? This guy. And he sat down and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he looked at me and with all total seriousness said, I wasn't ready to never see you again." And I laughed.
Yeah, she laughed. That is the true story. You laughed right in my face, and I thought, well, this is a terrible idea.
And then the teacher walked in and class started, and that was it. And it was a 3-hour class that we had to make it through. And then at the end, you know, we did the whole talk in the parking lot thing for weeks until I had to ask, "Are we ever going to do anything other than stand in the parking lot?" And then we went on our first date after class, and the rest is
yeah, 15 years later,
history.
Here we are. I knew right away Jen was the perfect person for me, and it didn't take me long to convince her.
I didn't know right away. You know, when we had first, you know, went on our first date, it was one of those things where, you know, I had been dating somebody else and I thought, I'm not getting into a relationship again. And at the end of the day, Brian kind of was like, "So what do you think about, you know, us?" And I was like, "I don't think so." Like, I'm not looking for a relationship. And then he kissed me goodnight and I said I changed my mind. And then that was it. I think the next weekend he went on vacation with my family and he said, when things are better, when we have some more money, we're getting married. And then that was a year later. We got married a year later.
Before starting Bourn Creative in 2005, Jennifer and Brian juggled work and family life as new parents.
I was working at a public relations company. I had an hour commute back and forth every day. You know, I was leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning and not getting back until 6:30 at night. And Brian was at home with our daughter most of the time, and it actually wasn't my idea to start the business. It was his. He said, "Don't people in your industry freelance? I think you could do that. You should do that. We should do that." And I'm thinking, what? No, can I? And he actually really pushed, you know, for that change because, you know, the vision was that it could be really great for our family. So while I kept, you know, working there, he took care of everything that I needed to start the business, filed all the paperwork. He actually called me and said, "I'm filing your business paperwork. I have a good idea. If we use our name, it's free."
Yeah, it was all to get out to save money with a fictitious business name statement. You're in a startup, you got to bootstrap any way you can. And if you can cut expenses, then the lady at the counter said, "Well, if you just use your last name, there's no fee." And Jen wanted to have creative in the name, and that's where the name
He said,
came
"Bourn
from.
Creative." And so the logo and everything, which everybody loved, was totally his idea. But he took care of getting all the foundation and everything in place for me to be able to quit my job. And, you know, from the start of the business, Brian always did all of the admin, the financials, you know, everything that ran the business. And I just did all the client work. Lots of client work.
Yeah, when we got started, I tell people this all the time, it was probably the scariest decision we've ever made as an adult. You know, we had just moved into this house, which was, you know, a big stretch for us financially at the time. It was right in the upswing of the real estate market in California. So, you know, we
had babies.
Paid a decent price for it. We had a 2-year-old daughter and another one on the way, and we basically put everything at risk financially for that freedom that we wanted as a family. Now looking back, it is the greatest decision we've ever made, and I would never second guess it. But at the time, looking forward,
it was tough.
It was impossible to connect the dots, and it was scary.
It was scary too because I was pregnant. And you know, when you first start a business, if you're not working, you're not making any money. When I had Carter, I took 2 weeks off. That was it. And so we spent probably that first year of having Carter with me working over the boppy or with him in the front pack, and I'm at the island working around him. And that was pretty much, you know, how it went. But we've always been short-term sacrifice, long-term gain. And that jump for our family and for our kids ultimately gave us the ability to do something that we loved and have a career and have an identity and be able to have something for ourselves and grow a business, but still be home and to be able to experience everything that we could with our kids and not miss any of that and really just be there for all of their little milestones.
When it comes to running their business, Jennifer and Brian believe that each team member should have clearly defined roles and responsibilities that everyone agrees to.
Ultimately, we do believe that one person should be in charge, even though that we constantly consult each other.
I'm in charge.
Yeah. Unofficially. But yeah, those roles, but for the most part, everything we do is equal, like business partners. And then I would say in our personal lives, it's very, very similar. You know, we each have our own things that we like to do and things that, you know, the other person is better at, and the other person just kind of relents that to them, and it makes a way to find balance.
I think that's true. I think, too, part of it is if you were to ask Brian and I weren't around who's the boss, he would say him. And if you were to ask me when Brian's not around, I would say me, because I totally believe I am. And he totally believes he is. And it works, because there are certain things that we just know, and I think some of it is the fact that we met so young. You know, we've been together since I was 18. We kind of figured everything out together as we got older, as we grew up. And the same thing with business. We started the business together, and neither one of us had ever done it before. So we just figured it out as we went together. Both of us are really okay with admitting, I suck at this, I'm terrible at it, I should have nothing to do with it, and anything that you say, I'll say yes to. And he's pretty much the same way. In, you know, our personal life and in business. You know, in business, when it comes to, you know, design and creativity and, you know, the marketing end and, you know, client consulting, a lot of it is what I say goes, and there's not a lot of conversation about that. And when it comes to the business and finances and you know, a lot of the day-to-day things and those kinds of decisions, you know, I get my input, but it's pretty much whatever Brian says goes. And our personal life is really similar. I don't touch anything to do with money, but I spend it. That's pretty much it. As long as I swipe my ATM card and it works, I'm good. And then there are certain things that, you know, it's all mine and Brian doesn't have anything to do with. You know, he just kind of, we let each other have that ebb and flow, and, you know, everybody gets to be the boss of something. I think the thing I appreciate the most about Brian is that he sees the potential in me more than I can even see it in myself. So a lot of times when I have doubts professionally or personally, or I question, you know, you have that, am I good enough for that? Can I do that? And he's always my biggest cheerleader, my biggest champion, will push me harder than anybody else, but 100% just believes in me and, you know, our kids, our family, and is just, I think in every action that he takes, it's never because it's what he wants or he puts himself first. It's 100% every single time guaranteed. What's going to be the best for you? What's going to get you further? What's going to get, you know, Natalie further or Carter further? He never, ever, ever puts himself first or thinks about himself. It's always about, you know, the team, or it's about me, or it's about the kids. You know, it's about making sure that everybody else is taken care of, that they like what they're doing, that they feel good about what they're doing, that they're confident in what they're doing. And it's a great person. It's a great thing to have, you know, every day.
Around Jennifer, she's the only person in this world that I can be 100% myself with and 100% honest, and she knows everything about me. My mom's a close second, but Jennifer ultimately is the only person in the world that knows absolutely everything about me and accepts me for who I am. And ultimately that brings out the best in me. I'm not always the best socially, not always the best being friendly or optimistic, but ultimately Jen she makes me a better person when I'm with her. And that's, I think, ultimately what I like the most.
Oh, that's so nice.
So what is Jennifer and Brian's secret to maintaining a happy marriage and a successful business partnership at the same time?
I think our business relationship and our personal relationship works so well because we both respect and trust each other more than anyone else in the entire world. I would say Brian is probably the most brilliant person I have ever met, ever, in any aspect of anything. He can do everything, and it's almost irritating. But the fact that, you know, I knew that when I met him, I still know that now, and trust implicitly any decision that he would make or suggestion or anything like that. I think the same could probably be said, I don't know about brilliance, but the respect and the trust between the two of us, I think, is one of those things that it's never wavered.
You know, and ultimately, anyone in business will tell you that you can only go so far on your own. You can go 10 times farther with a team than you can by yourself. So to move forward, you have to have partners, employees, teammates, subcontractors, vendors, people you trust. That's the only way you can move forward. You're limited by your own, what you can do on your own. So I think because that we've gone farther together than on our own is why it works, and it's a constant positive feedback loop that the better we work together, the farther we move forward in business. And it just keeps reinforcing itself over and over again. The best thing about working with Jennifer or working with your spouse is we get to see each other all the time and talk to each other. You know, no one ever says, oh, I wish I spent more time at the office. They always say, oh, I wish I spent more time with my family. Well, I get to do that every day. So that is definitely the best part of what I think is working together.
What's the worst part about working with me?
The worst part of working together, I would say, is the hard, at least for me, the hardest part is maintaining the personal, professional boundaries and trying not to invade business talk into our family time after hours. And then sometimes, you know, your personal feelings do get in the way of business decisions and business discussions, because at the end of the day, we're still married. So as, you know, Jen likes to let me believe I'm the boss, and sometimes I have to make those hard decisions and stand by them no matter what, which, you know, in a normal company, if your teammates go home and hate you for the day, that's okay because they're going to be back the next day. Well, at 5, we have to be a married couple, so that definitely does create a little bit of issues that definitely shapes our discussions because there is a personal relationship intertwined.
Those are the nights Brian pantry eats. Oh, but I would definitely agree with that. The best part about us working together is definitely we get to spend so much time together. We go out to lunch when the kids are at school. You know, we're able to really just enjoy being together. I mean, Brian's my best friend, so who else would I want to work with? But it is, the challenge of that is not having business discussions on Saturday while we're out with the kids at the park because it's on your mind, you know, and being able to turn that off. And I do turn it off better than Brian. We have to say, Brian. But, you know, it's a trade-off. Sometimes the kids will call us on it, say, hey, stop talking about that. But for the most part, our kids are funny because, you know, where some kids play house, our kids play office. Or where some kids play school, our kids play conference. You know, or they do their play and pretend is different. When Natalie was little, she'd set all her buddies up like her buddies are her little elephants. And I would hear her playing and she'd say, hold on, let mommy send this email. And she'd pretend she's working and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. So, you know, now that they're older, they call us on it a little bit. They'll say, when are you going to be done? I don't want you to work at all. And we'll say, okay, at 5 o'clock, we'll shut down and then we'll be done. You know, so they know till 5, you're on your own. But after that, I'm yours.
And what advice do Jennifer and Brian have for other couples who are considering going into business together?
I think the best advice for somebody getting started is to identify early on what's important to you and make sure that every decision you make is in alignment with that. For us, it's always been our family first, and that's why we've held these decisions that we've not made in the past or opportunities that we've passed on, even though they would have led to more money and, you know, bigger business growth, they didn't align with our goals as a family. And by making sure that we've always kept that as the most important driving factor in our decision-making process, we look back with no regrets that way. So I think finding early on what's important to you is the best thing you can do.
The biggest thing is, I think, really great communication, and two, making sure, like Brian said, making sure you're both on the same page about what's your priorities. You know, if you're a couple and you consider working together, you need to decide what's going to be the most important thing. If this doesn't work out, are we going to be okay? If I hate you at work, are we going to be okay? Or if this doesn't work out and we end up being terrible business partners, can we quit this business and still be okay? You know, those are things I think you need to explore and ask before you get started. When you work with your spouse, you both have to be willing to do things that maybe aren't the traditional male-female role or spousal role. You know, when we first started the business and I was doing all the client work and working from sunup to sundown, Brian did all the cooking, all the laundry, all the grocery shopping, all the kids stuff, everything. You name it, he did it. I did none of it. I pretty much was totally taken care of so I could work my butt off all day. And then when he took, you know, the reins of the company, I went back to working a 40-hour-a-week job, you know, job. It felt like a job sometimes, but I went back, you know, to working, you know, a normal schedule, and now, you know, I do the cooking and all of that while we're getting team members on and some of the work. You know, work-life balance I don't think exists. For us, I believe it's a teeter-totter. You're on this teeter-totter and work is on one end and life is on the other, and sometimes it's like this and sometimes it's like this. As long as it's not tipped too far one way for too long, I think you're okay. Sometimes business has to come first, and you're gonna have to say, sorry kids, we got a deadline, we've got to take a site live, go play. And that's the way that it is. Sometimes business comes first, and sometimes family comes first. And as long as it's always kind of shifting and it's staying fairly level, you know, I think you're really good. But both people in the relationship, both personally and professionally, have to be willing to, you know, to walk the whole, you know, the whole length and do every part of everything, because sometimes you just need to. And you have to be okay with it.